Good evening and welcome to Overgrow The Radio. Happy Thursday from the Mile High City. I'm sort of by myself tonight. I'm almost a mile high as always. Bringing up the other quarter of that highness would be my first guess, I hope. I don't know, though. They're kind of professional, so maybe not. We have a lot going on here in Colorado this week as we're going to touch on with these guys, and I'm going to talk about news real quick. In studio real quick, we've got Sean Coleman and Josh Capel.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Doing great.
We're going to give you proper introductions in just a little while, but feel free to chime in while I rant and rave because that makes it more fun. So in the news, of course, really the top of the news is our local news, in my opinion. It has been for weeks. That being said, there were definitely a couple of stories that really stuck out. Our neighboring state, Oklahoma, great place to not ever go.
Sooner or later.
Are they actually our neighboring state?
Well,
We
you
got a
kind of
small
have
border,
to.
on the south.
Yeah, you have to kind of zigzag, but you can sort of technically.
It's a border state.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they protect us from Texas?
Yes, they do.
Does
in fact,
anything protect anyone from Texas?
Yeah, Oklahoman is their sole job as far as I knew.
That's what I thought too, but I guess
They do have a lot of guns there,
That's
but
so does Texas.
so yeah. So a woman in Oklahoma, a lady went to the hospital, had horrible stomach pain, didn't know what was going on. They found 2 pills. I'm not sure it even says in the article here what they were. In her pocket, 2 prescription pills. She didn't have a prescription for them. 2 pills. So they call the police. The police come, and rather than check the lady out, keep her in the criminal, quote-unquote, section of the hospital, it sounds like they just send her right to jail. A couple hours later, she dies in her cell. She's the third person this year to die, technically in the drug war, if you will. She, again, just complained the whole way to jail. They didn't do anything for her. They just threw her in a cell, and she died. Of course, people are pointing fingers. There's a quote here. It's Oklahoma. There's nothing my staff in the jail could have done differently. That's just, to me, fundamentally wrong. I don't think I really need to explain that. There's 1,000 things that sheriff could have done differently, or his staff, and that lady would still be alive. She's dead because she had 2 prescription pills in her pocket. On to more death and doom and gloom. Indonesia is a place really that has draconian drug laws. They have forever, really, for as long as I remember, at least since the international treaty, if not longer. And you can actually be sentenced to death there for drugs. And there's actually a British woman, sounds like an older lady, 56 years old. Okay, maybe that's not too old. I'm not.
That's
far.
young.
Yeah. I'm quickly.
That's when life begins.
Yeah, right. And when you actually have time to enjoy life. But this lady had, granted, quite a bit of cocaine, like 10 pounds of cocaine. But Indonesia has sentenced her to death for this cocaine. Again, is it worth someone dying? It's just drugs, folks. So let's get into more local-ish stuff. I think first I'm going to talk about, really in Colorado, the ripple effect that we've had on the nation. And I want to bring you guys in on this first article and get your opinion. For 10 years, ASA has been trying. This is sort of a downer, and we're going to build from there, I promise you. But ASA has been trying to sue, going back to court over and over to get, cannabis rescheduled. Well, in all their infinite wisdom, our federal court of appeals is still claiming there's no medical benefit to cannabis. We have not only 18 states and now the District of Columbia, which is a whole other segment, about the federal territory being legal.
The people of that great colony should have the right to govern themselves and have representation for the taxes they pay, in my opinion, as a expatriate of the colony.
Are you a sovereign person?
Well, look, I think that it is an outrage that the voters of the city of our nation's capital, whose lives are constantly held subject to the whim of the Congress, that they could pass a law and it could be not enacted for 10 years because someone in Oklahoma or Washington State or Colorado, for that matter, says so. I mean, frankly, I do think we're smarter in Colorado because we live here instead of Washington, D.C. But nonetheless, I don't think it is appropriate for, my member of Congress to dictate how people are going to live their lives in the nation's capital. And the reality is that it just took far too long for their medical marijuana law and for their gay marriage law to take effect because of the ideas and whims of someone who I believe is fundamentally none of their business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a lowball figure, but they point out in this article that 70% of our country now considers cannabis medicine, according to most polls. Maybe that's a fair average if you took all polls into account, but I've seen numbers up to 80% in some of these polls. So I think, the not only that, but the science, the medical field, the AMA recently came out and asked them to re-examine it and start studying it. So, I think I don't. I joked with a friend on the phone. I don't know how they could pass that ruling down with a straight face anymore. I really, really don't. It says they base their ruling on whether the DEA's refusal to allow a rescheduling, was relevant. So I suppose we'll let Josh chime in. He's our legal guy tonight on this one.
Thanks. Well, I mean, it's interesting. There's an uphill battle from the beginning. The D.C. Circuit, the Court of Appeals, it handles all of the administrative. Whenever any administrative agency is alleged of going beyond their powers, it goes to the D.C. Circuit, and the D.C. Circuit's notorious for deferring to the administrative agency, and that's what they did here. Is they said, "Oh, DEA, it's not unreasonable that you find no medical value," which, as we all know, it actually is very unreasonable that they found that. It's tough. The one thing though, the one positive out of the case was they did find standing for for the plaintiffs, which one person was a veteran who couldn't use marijuana to treat his post-traumatic stress disorder. And they said that because of this injury that you can't use marijuana, you have standing to actually sue, which is huge. And I think what I'm fascinated about, the question I have, is ASA going to appeal this to the Supreme Court?
I'm hoping. I don't call anyone out, but I would love to get a representative from their organization on the show at some point. I think I've had a few of their members on, but no one higher up. So, we'd love to have them on and talk to them about that. I think, really, in my opinion, and again, you guys can chime in, it's got to be that, or it's got to be, like you said, the patient who can sue now. It's clear that they're just ignoring this for whatever, we may have differing opinions, whatever the ambition is, it's there. It's time, I guess, that the people as a whole, we as we do on a daily basis, but we have to come together more in the masses, not just in Colorado and Washington and places where it's safe to do so. We've got to motivate people in Tennessee and Mississippi and Oklahoma to come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, and maybe you'll get to this, but did you see Oklahoma introduced a medical marijuana bill?
Yes,
legislature
sir.
There.
Well, there's a lot of states. We may actually get to that if we have time. The last couple of weeks, and we didn't even get to news last week, I should premise that. We got sidetracked, and sometimes that happens. But we will move on because there are a lot of states with exciting news. I think the next article we can almost skip. I'll just ask you guys that question. Is it time for a big DC initiative? I will say that I might know an organization that might be working on something. I might know that organization very personally, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, again, if there's a D.C. initiative, then it's going to force Congress to weigh in because the laws of D.C. cannot go into effect unless Congress says so. But, my advice to people who, seem to care a lot about what happens in Washington City, well, if you don't want to, live the way people of Washington, D.C. have chosen to live for themselves, then my recommendation is don't run for Congress. Then you won't end up there.
I know. You guys know I have a vested interest in D.C. I go twice, or my organization, I'm not always there, goes twice a year to do a protest. So quick shameless plug, 420 Lafayette Park. We're going to start at the northeast quadrant. Had to think about that, of the Washington Monument, and we're going to march down 15th and all the way to the White House and have a day of speakers from LEAP and possibly ASA, Normal, different organizations, MPP. A lot of folks come out for the day. So
make sure you get up to the Dancing Crab in Tenleytown. Best seafood in the city.
I encourage it. I mean, anytime I lived in Florida
after the protest march.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Florida for like a decade, man, and the only time, I'm not a huge seafood guy, but the only time I'll eat seafood is if it's fresh, if I'm on the coast somewhere. So yeah, absolutely. If you're in DC, you should have seafood.
So you haven't had seafood in a while.
So fill me in, though, and we're gonna get sidetracked for just a second. Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry to answer that. The Washington Monument, you walk down, towards the Potomac, and there's the wharf there. Is that the neighborhood you're referring to? Because there's a chain of seafood restaurants
that place.
there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and that area is awesome too. But Tenleytown's up north, just past north of Georgetown.
Very good. Sean, it's funny. I'm going to joke with him real quick that the song we play was kind of a fun song on the way in. We used it last week, too, and it talks about the marijuana, I hate that word, cannabis lobbyists making money.
Yeah, they're awesome, those guys.
We all make money. We are all lobbyists to our own effect. I have sponsors. You do your thing. I'm pretty sure that Sean has a house he has to pay for and probably food that he has to pay for.
I am not a registered lobbyist.
No,
I'm putting it out there.
But you're the worst evil. We'll get to that in a minute. I can joke like that because I'm surrounded by you folks. So moving on real quick, getting into the states a little bit. There is one more pretty significant issue on the federal level, though. I can't read this, but a Democrat out of Vermont, we'll just say that, head of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Mr. Leahy.
There you go. It's blurred on my printout.
Pat, good old Pat.
He's asking for an end to mandatory minimums. That's pretty big. We'll see if it goes anywhere, but I don't know. Just a brief little write-up.
Is that all mandatory minimums?
Yeah, it appears that's what he's asking for.
He's also talked about having a hearing on Colorado and Washington state's laws too. So we're hoping that, because as far as I'm aware, that's going to be the first time the Senate is taking this issue up at all. We have a lot of leadership. Well, I wouldn't say a lot. We have about 15 very strong members in the House of Representatives, but there has not been very much activity in the Senate yet, so that would be very encouraging to see.
Absolutely. Well, and I was going to say, he goes on to say that he hopes, and it's sort of a half quote, that the federal government will not spend, quote, a great deal of resources, unquote, on enforcing cannabis law. So, very good. Very good. So we're going to fly through this because Sam always cuts me short when I almost finish my news. Hawaii introduced a bill this week for legalization. Speaker, I'll butcher this name, Suki, we'll just go with that, Democrat from District 8, if you will. Last Friday, he's going to legalize for possession. And it looks like, similar system to what we have here, more so than Washington. Details to come. We're going to run through these real quick. States with measures. Let's see. Iowa introduced a medical bill this week. House File 22. If you live in Iowa, you should be on the phones. That's what I mean. If you're out there in these states, you've got to support it. You've got to go visit your representatives.
In a suit and tie, by the way.
If I can do it, anyone can. So I'll tell you guys a secret before we go to break about my tie today. It's kind of cool. I discovered it. Oklahoma. We were talking about Oklahoma earlier. Yep. Senate Bill 902. Again, you guys, I know it's scary. I lived in flyover states my whole life. I came out of the closet. If I can do it, you can too. Just, stop in, see your congressperson, I like to say, because, congressman's a little chauvinist. go see them, as they said, in a suit and tie or a dress, whatever the case may be.
Suit and tie.
Wear something nice.
Yeah, even if you're a female, suit and tie works. You know. Business suits always cool, always cool. South Dakota, it looks like sort of a step. A medical defense bill, I'm guessing an affirmative action type thing. And then last but not least, and maybe the biggest, Texas. Texas introduced a medical marijuana affirmative defense bill. So again, a baby step. But maybe in Texas, that's a huge step. So real quick before we go to break, I think the camera's on me, but you probably can't see it. So I'm a hippie, and I go to buy ties at like...
Weird.
I know that's a stretch. a hippie in sheep's clothing, if you will. So when I buy ties, I like to pop around to the different thrift stores and things, and I just look for ties that I like. So I found this tie. I'm like, oh, it matches a couple shirts that I have, and I bring it home, and I'm like looking, wow, that's a weird label, that's kind of different. So I actually read the tag here, and it's Grateful Dead. Huh. And if you look really closely, I don't think you can see it, but there's little dead skulls imprinted into the material.
That is a pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I mean, this one might have to go into my collection of
boring.
Yeah,
take it back now.
Yes, but it's a very neutral Republican Democrat. Love everyone.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Absolutely.
Like, keep that page intentionally vague.
So we'll introduce these guys in just a minute. Right now, we're going to jump out and pay some bills. Stick with us here on Overgrow The Radio. Peace.
Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
The law offices of Edson Maton and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
That Mad Hatter Smoke Shop has everything from space glass to butane and butane accessories, I tell you what. Located at 6091 West Colfax in Lakewood, and now at 2615 Walnut Street in Denver. Ah! God damn it, Reclaim, put your pants back on.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706. Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. runongrass.com.
And we're back on Overgrow The Radio. Real quick, before I get in with these guys, we've got a big party in Denver this weekend. Canopages, Colorado's third anniversary birthday bash, if you will. I think Sam has a piece of paper with all the details somewhere over there. But anyway, it's at the Aslan Theater. It's from like 6 till about midnight. They always have good bands and cake and all that fun stuff. And you like how I just snatched that out of your hand? Yeah, it's canopages.com. But long story short, we've got 2 VIP passes So the first person in the Denver area to email me at, let's pick an email address. stickman200210@gmail.com. I'll throw those 2 passes to you guys. The VIP pass will get you everywhere. You can smoke with Canna Pages if you're a patient or over the age of 21. It gets you backstage to hang out with the bands and probably medicate with them, and it'll be fun. I think I'll be there. I'm going to go down south for a day or so, but I'm going to try to get back up for it and join everybody. So shoot me an email at stickman200210@gmail.com, and they're yours. So first person. So moving on, I am honored and humbled and well, that's good enough to be joined by to be joined by these 2 gentlemen, Josh Capel and Sean Coleman. I mentioned you guys earlier. Again, how are you?
Very good.
Doing well.
They are very active in their own right, and honestly, we'll just start with Sean. I wasn't entirely sure what you were up to these days. I think the last time you were on the show, you were doing something different. So what are you up to?
I have some friends that I see every once in a while, like once or twice a year, Kenny and Molly, and they frequently ask me, so what is it exactly that you do? And the question is, I do a lot. Last time we talked, I was the executive director of the Cannabis Business Alliance, but now I'm actually in private practice with 36 Solutions. It's a political consulting and lobbying firm here in Denver. And I'm going to be working on the Amendment 64 implementation, making sure that, that both the interest of the brave men and women who created our industry, as well as good public policy, are served as we move forward, making sure that the voters got what they asked for, which is a safe, regulated cannabis marketplace.
Well, and I think, ironically, most of us that were involved with the campaign to any level, we all wanted safety for our children and the community as a whole. I think that was a main focus, at least for me, with
That's
regulation. Right. I find it ironic that this is being thrown back in our face now, which we'll get into in a minute.
Well, but no, I mean, just real briefly, I think it can't be said enough that the best way to ensure that the marketplace is safe, that there are no bad actors, and that there is no black market is to have a strong, healthy, and vibrant, legal, private marketplace. And that's, and it's really just that simple. If you do not want marijuana sold out of people's houses or random $30 cups of coffee, what you need to have is a very strong and robust marketplace for professional, licensed marijuana retailers.
Couldn't agree more. So let's let Mr. Capel in on this. Josh Capel is a respected attorney here in the good city of Denver, Colorado. Josh, we haven't known each other long, but I always have admiration for anyone who donates time aside from being very busy, and I have gotten that impression from you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. You were involved a little bit in the campaign along the way.
Yeah, thanks. Like you said, I'm Josh Capel. I'm the Associate Director of Sensible Colorado. We're a nonprofit that's been working here in Colorado since 2004. They're really advocating on behalf of medical marijuana patients and the marijuana community and for sensible marijuana laws altogether. And really, it's our organization's mission was pretty much accomplished in November. When we passed Amendment 64. And so that's one hat I wear. The other hat I wear is I'm an attorney at the law firm Vicente Cederberg. We represent various businesses. We do transactional and licensing work, and a lot of local government and state government lobbying and implementation work as well.
They have a very good lobbyist.
He may be close by, eh?
I think he's in the neighborhood, actually.
So just to digress a little bit, as I mentioned, both of you guys were somewhat involved to a degree in the campaign, or at least I saw you in a couple photos. I don't know where you were. You may have been neutral in that aspect. I want to get your thoughts on legalization. How does it feel? Either, I don't care who goes first.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll jump in just to clarify. I was not neutral by any stretch of the imagination. Having worked in marijuana policy for not as nearly as long as people like even Josh. In fact, I feel like I got lucky. I got to kind of cherry pick. I started working in the policy area when I worked for Congressman Jared Polis in his D.C. office back in 2009, which is basically yesterday in terms of the history of this movement.
Basically yesterday. It was like 3 decades ago.
or in a completely different dimension, depending on what you look at, because of the amount of progress that we've made recently. But when you are in policy, you view things in terms of what is good public policy, and while having at the time 17 states in the District of Columbia having medical marijuana was a good first step. Full legalization, full access for people who want to use this product. I mean, this plant that's less harmful than alcohol, less harmful than tobacco, is actually just the best public policy. So I was very excited to work with Josh and the campaign. I coordinated the campaign in Fort Collins, which overturned the dispensary ban up there, and for Amendment 64, both measures won by 10 points in Fort Collins.
Kudos! I had no idea that was you.
Yeah. Well, it was
John
me.
That you led the charge.
It was me with some dedicated business owners who recognized that the citizens of their city were duped in an off-year election by some special interest, and they saw an opportunity to get that overturned. And it turns out the wisdom of the voters of Fort Collins was very decisive. So where the dispensary ban passed barely by by two percentage points, the measure to overturn it passed by 10. So that there you have it.
On a quick side note, is that and I want to talk more about that. Team Fort Collins, is that was that the group that worked for the ban? We were discussing that. This is completely random.
No, so Team Fort Collins is a consortium of business interests in Fort Collins, lots of alcohol producers, beer producers, and they've come together because, in all sense, to give it its full credit for the purposes of preventing teen substance abuse of all kinds. Sure. And under that rationale, they felt the need to weigh in on the dispensary ban when they did, and they helped that campaign, and it was successful. But again, what was very clearly demonstrated to the voters of Fort Collins is that the best way to ensure that teenagers are not getting cannabis is to have it sold by regulated purveyors.
Absolutely.
It's just that simple, and they made that decision by 10 points.
Absolutely. One of the points that I keep stressing in my work group and other work groups is that that it wasn't a narrow margin. The voters spoke very loudly and told us what they wanted. So, Josh, let's let you chime in. I want to get your feelings. I mean, as you said, sensible. What are they doing now? I mean, you guys just kind of hanging out, donuts, and
it's mission accomplished. We were on the aircraft carrier with like the giant banner, and it was one of those things where it was just so awesome. Once we won by such a huge margin, it was so reaffirming for all of our work, and then about a couple weeks later, it was reality set in, and I was like, oh, we actually have all sorts of work to do now. Because we have to implement this, and we have to, take something that's, was otherwise in theory and turn it into practice and turn it into reality, and so it's actually, there's actually a lot of work to be done here, and
that's
where we are, and even up in Fort Collins, it's like they're working on 301, to implement that, but then they got to implement 64, there's a lot still to be done.
Yeah, that was just the first step. As I learned very quickly, they're absolutely we I've talked about it briefly before on the show when I announced being in the work group, but I carry such a sense of responsibility into these meetings because it's the odds are stacked against us to a certain extent in these groups, and we have so much work and so little time. And even after that, it's just going to continue on and on and on. But right now, we can't continue on and on and on because we have to pay some bills one more time. When we come back, though, what I really want to talk to you guys about for the next whatever minutes we have left There have definitely been. We're going to talk about the work that's going on right now and get some opinions. And you can stay fairly neutral if there's something that you need to be. But there are definitely some key issues coming up in these work groups that some of them I don't even feel we should be addressing. We were given a guideline recently, as we were talking about before the show, and I'm pretty sure some of these issues don't meet that guideline. So stick around. We'll be right back here on Overgrow The Radio on iCannabisRadio.com.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706. Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. runongrass.com.
Interested in hemp CBD wellness products? Join the DixieX revolution. DixieX has created 3 new products using hemp-derived CBD. DixieX Scripts capsules, DixieX Dewdrops, and a 1-ounce 100 milligram formula and a 2-ounce 500 milligram formula, and DixieX Botanicals Pain Relief Salve. If you're interested in these products, look for us on Facebook, DixieX, or at www.dixiex.com.
This is Jessica Asplund with the Crested Butte Wellness Center in the Craig Apothecary. I'd like to invite you into either of our locations to see the difference compassion makes. With everything from sublingual tablets, gluten-free products, and a growing variety of edibles, there is sure to be something right for everyone. We carry only top-shelf, organically grown cannabis at affordable prices for everyone. Stop in and see us at our Crested Butte location at 329 Bellevue Avenue or at our Craig location at 611 Breeze Street.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first Cannabis Championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
That Mad Hatter Smoke Shop has everything from space glass to butane and butane accessories, I tell you what. Located at 6091 West Colfax in Lakewood, and now at 2615 Walnut Street in Denver. Ah! God damn it, Reclaim, put your pants back on.
Ooh. There's jazz playing. That means it's time to come back, and that always makes me groove a little bit. That's Sam. He actually made that bumper from a ringtone or something. It was just a spur of the moment, and we liked it, so we kept it. One of these days, when life slows down, we'll get into our studio and actually add a little more variety into our life.
Man, I've talked to you in like 2017.
Yeah, I've been hoping for life to slow down for a while.
No joke. So right now, to fill folks in out of state, what's going on here in Colorado, as we mentioned, there's a lot of work going on and will be for some time. The governor has formed a task force of, correct me if I'm wrong, 24 members?
That's some number of people.
Yeah, it's like 24, 25.
Yeah, 24, give or take a couple.
I didn't pay as much attention to that one because
sometimes I don't pay the maximum amount of attention.
They didn't accept my application for that one. So, I think most of them have the best interest of the bill at heart. I think there are definitely a few that I've observed who I would question on that. I'll say it on the air. I said it during break. I'm going to be nice and be friendly because we all are working together, and I hope that at some point in this process we all see eye to eye on some level. So I'm striving for that. There's actually 5 subgroups that were created above and beyond the task force. There's the local authority and control, which I sit on, and I almost said backwards, which would have been really embarrassing. There's consumer safety and social issues, tax and funding / I guess civil issues, That's a lot for one group.
I've been to a couple of their hearings, and I think that group is, actually really taken a good approach, which is that they just do deep dives on specific aspects. They've taken up banking, they've taken up employer-employee relationships, things like that. So, I don't think it necessarily matters if anybody agrees with the outcomes, so long as the process is good, because this is just one step of the process. After the task force, then it goes to the General Assembly. After it goes to the General Assembly, then it goes to rulemaking. So there are plenty of opportunities to make sure that at the end of the day, we end up with a set of regulations that are going to provide for a strong and vibrant Colorado cannabis economy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And in the end, it will work out. And that's where it's key, again, for quote-unquote everyday citizens to be a part of this process. Even if you can just come out and put your 2 minutes in. Again, wear a tie, dress nice, do your best. Please don't sit there and talk while the working group, out loud while the working group is doing their thing. And again, no names needed, but there's been meetings that I've been in where people are just talking in their everyday radio voice, like nothing's going on in the room.
They're just trying to practice the radio voice.
Woman of the show.
Because everyone's on the radio every day. So what I want to get into a little bit is there are in these groups, well, I guess I should finish the groups. There's the regulatory framework group, which actually is very essential. I mean, they're laying out the framework for...
It's probably the most important one.
Agreed. Criminal law issues, which I have my opinions. There's definitely a couple groups that I see the potential to go the wrong way. I really hope that doesn't happen. So a few of the issues I want to get into, actually, I think one of the first ones we'll start with is sort of one of your areas of expertise, banking. As folks know, cannabis obviously is still illegal at a federal level. That conflicts with our state laws. So the banks in Colorado have chosen, if you will, not to do business with cannabis dispensaries, cannabis businesses in general. I think that, the general rule is if your name has cannabis or high or marijuana, a bank will not talk to you. Mr. Coleman?
Unless they do. And well, look, the regulatory agencies, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, and of several other agencies, they did weigh in on the issue back in 2010 as a response to an inquiry by my former boss, Congressman Jared Polis. And what they said, and to paraphrase, was that this is a decision that banks should make without the involvement of their supervisor. The issues are that banks have to consider the opportunity cost, whether it's because by banking this industry their reputation will suffer and they'll lose other more lucrative customers, or would this risk profile preclude them from doing some other more profitable line of business, which is another thing that happens. Or do we want to deal with the compliance costs? But I think more essential to the problem is that since this is a young industry that operates in at best dynamic, at worst capricious regulatory environment, banks, that precludes the most profitable relationship a bank can have with a business, which is a debt obligation relationship. Even if you are willing to contend with the reputation, opportunity, and compliance cost of giving a cannabis business a bank account, at the end of the day, if that's the only thing you can do, you can't give them a business loan, because no matter how strong that business might be, there's the outside potential that that business could be zoned out of existence by caprice of a city council, or taken out of business by an overreach of the federal government. So that's going to be an issue for the long term. But I think as the industry matures and as the industry becomes more profitable, which will, I think, be a result of the passage of Amendment 64 and hopefully a wise implementation of the law, I think that will change. Once the environment settles down, businesses have been around for 10 years, it's clear they're not going anywhere, this will change.
Absolutely, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but my layman's opinion has always been that exactly what you said, and to dumb it down for myself and others, that basically take high risk mortgage.
Sure.
They don't mind doing that because if, say, the person defaults, then obviously they get the house, they resell it, they still make money. On the flip side of that, a dispensary gets raided by the feds, all their assets are seized, the bank loses everything.
Correct.
It's a business decision.
Right.
And they probably don't want to deal with the feds seizing the bank account.
Right, exactly. Which is also so ironic since almost at this point every major bank has been convicted of money laundering for cartels.
The most frustrating part is that the solution is so available. The Secretary of the Treasury has the authority under the Bank Secrecy Act, which is the number one compliance and regulatory issues that banks are facing in regards to this, to just simply change the law. There's no act of Congress required. In fact, some members of our delegation, a Colorado delegation, Representative Polis and Representative Diana DeGette, sent specific instructions to the Department of Treasury, in fact, and said all you need to do is allow, under your ability, to make it the compliance rule, that all the bank has to do is tell their regulator that they have these types of accounts. And then that's it. There's no longer any suspicious activity, none of the other compliance costs or requirements. The only trigger would be is if that business was not compliant with Colorado law. And as we all know, there's no industry in the state that is more compliant than Colorado's medical marijuana industry.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and my joke is always, that the feds and the state both collect tax money from every single one of these businesses that are licensed and legal. My solution to the banking issue is just, well, where do they bank? We'll just send everyone to their bank.
With the Treasury itself.
Absolutely. So I hope the U.S. Treasury opens up a personal banking branch soon for all of our cannabis businesses to go along with that wonderful tax money they're collecting. So let's throw one at you, Mr. Capel.
Bring it on.
Another big issue, and I believe we may differ a little on opinions, but that's okay. That's good. Is the ad ban. This came up yesterday, I guess, in the meeting, and what they proposed was a flat-out ban, to where you can't sell food items, you can't sell hats, T-shirts. I believe they left print ads alone, and they would allow you to have a website. Now, I'm going to premise this for you a little bit in that, again, from a layman's perspective, I believe the first issue with a lot of this stuff is cross-jurisdictional. I think there's always the First Amendment, and I'm just going to ask you for your opinion if you think, if this were to go forward, do you see repercussions or?
Well, I think we should separate it out. Like, there's a couple different things. Like, one is like restricting the items, that regulated businesses could sell, which I just don't think makes any sense. Like, you're gonna say they can't sell T-shirts, or they can't sell coffee mugs. The only people that will ever see that stuff is people who go into those businesses, and so it just doesn't make sense. Now whether there should be reasonable restrictions on advertising overall is a whole nother question. I think. I think for our young industry, I think it makes sense to kind of embrace reasonable restrictions in advertising, mostly because it's a PR thing. When you look at, think about, when you drive down the street and you see what's the worst advertising you see? Usually it's like the liquor store with their shoddy banners hanging up all over the place, and so I think that's what the public is thinking of, and the public doesn't want to see another store with these shoddy banners hanging up, all over the place, kind of pushing how cheap their marijuana is. So I think there's a fear there from the public. I think there's also a fear that, that we've heard a lot from, the opponents of marijuana reform is that, the marijuana industry is going to target minors and that they're going to try and get people addicted. And I think, I think that's just really, it misses the point of really what this industry is all about and really where this industry came from, of really helping sick people and helping people who need this. And, And so I think that there's a balance somewhere in between of allowing, certain advertisements and not allowing others that may be, more offensive or just distasteful.
Well, I'll actually second that. I yell it all the time on the show and pretty much with everything I do in life. As most of my viewers know, I've worn a tie maybe 3 shows. One I was in court, and now 2 on the working group or in meetings. So, I respect the culture side of things. I really do. I respect freedom of speech. That being said, Colorado, for good reason, is in a huge, huge fishbowl. We're the ones to watch. We're doing things right, or as right as they can be. No one's ever done anything like this, so we're learning as we go. And
I do want to say something. The irony of any restriction on advertising in Colorado is that it wouldn't apply to any other state if someone was trying to advertise to get people to come to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was one of the questions brought up in the work group. Exactly that. I mean, if you live in Jefferson County and they ban it, but then your city says, okay, you can have it. How does that work?
Well, first of all, I do think that it's important that local communities have the options to choose how they want to address this in their community. Because, for example, I live in City of Boulder, where, in my voting precinct, Amendment 64 won by like 75% of the vote. But then, I'm proud of it. And, we in Northeast Boulder, we believe that cannabis should be legal, and we believe that strongly. However, in Douglas County, they have a different view. And the reality is that we're all trying to cross the same intellectual bridge. So it would be, I think, unwise for us to be telling the federal government in D.C. that our micro sovereignty trumps your macro sovereignty in regards to this issue. But oh no, Glenwood Springs or Douglas County, you must do what we say at state capitol in Denver. It's just logically inconsistent. So I think that we need to maintain that consistency. And I think that the most important thing is delivering to the voters what they were expecting. And the way we do that is to honor the will of communities. And that's why I think it's incredibly important that communities do feel they have the ability to decide for themselves what this is going to look like.
Well, and you guys know me well enough to know I can be opinionated, and I try to be respectful. But I've been speaking, adding my input to some of the work groups, if not most of them. And one of the things that I stress is exactly what you said. The first and foremost, we're enacting the will of the people, no matter what we feel. I've heard debates about how cannabis is bad for my child. On and on and on. We could spend another hour on that. And, the thing is as I mentioned earlier, we have such a short amount of time. I think the intention of these work groups and the task force in general is to set forth a framework that is good and works and is solid, but not to overread into that, not to address every, issue out there, because I think a lot of these things will be addressed in time, and some of them may address themselves.
Yeah, and it's a lot of speculation. It's like every week I feel like I hear 20 new bad ideas from the task force, and a lot of them are speculation. It's some fear based off of this or that. It's like fear that marijuana is all of a sudden 3,000 times stronger than it was before, and it's like, well, not really. Do
we want to have a lower grade cannabis in the recreational store?
Yeah, just bad ideas. But I do want to say that I do agree completely with Sean that a lot of these issues are best left to the local governments. Because in Colorado we're a very diverse state. We have mountain communities that are way different than the plains, that are way different than Boulder, which is way different than Colorado Springs, and so it's really I think each local government should be entrusted to craft rules and policies that best fit their communities.
Well,
to an extent.
I talked in the get-go about how diverse the board or the group that I sit in is. We have an Eagle County attorney. We have a lady from Boulder. Just the spectrum. San Miguel, all over the state. And, it's ironic and cool, I'll just throw that out, that we are working together and we're seeing eye to eye. But one of the best things is we were unanimous on one thing. And that one thing is giving most of the power to the municipalities. I'm tripping tonight on some words.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yes. No chemicals involved. Just tired meetings all day, that type of thing. That would be much more fun. Maybe it might keep me awake a little longer. But anyway, that's our main focus. Really is to keep just a basic, bare bones but solid structure at the state level, and let every area is different. Like you pointed out, Colorado Springs is a world apart from Boulder. And
I think that the residents of both cities would hate to have the two become confused.
That is probably true.
Yeah. I can sort of say that I somewhat have a partial residence in the Springs still, but I'm a convert.
I love Colorado Springs, but I just feel like as a resident of Boulder, which I also love, how people want to run this in Colorado Springs is not a whole lot of my business.
Absolutely, exactly. And I'll never, I don't think that they'll let me go, but I said when I moved up here that I won't leave the council because it's a battleground. I mean, that county
And you guys also do really great work down at the Colorado Springs Medical Cannabis Council. I mean, I've got to say, you've done, I think, a lot to demonstrate how the cannabis community is a net positive contributor to the city's economy. I mean, literally, you got the streetlights turned back on.
It's true.
It's funny and again ironic. I think I've said that word like 100 times tonight, but that's the life we live. That we just banned, El Paso County recreational, and we're gonna mention another city that's knee-jerk reaction right now. But it's ironic because Mark and I, had that one-on-one conversation with every single commissioner and pointed things like, the street lights and the extra police and the things we've been able to do. And, I even went into my notes from our first group meeting and pointed out that, we are working on a lot of these issues. You may even lose some control to ban things by passing your ban now.
Well, and that's certainly correct. And it's certainly what Fort Collins voters figured out in, their, 9-month experiment of returning to prohibition, that they were like, oh, oops.
They're like, all our neighborhoods marijuana grows.
Turns out that all of these crazy hippies were totally right the entire time because we experimented both, and now we got to go back. But I think that, what we have to remember is that the wealth of knowledge in this room is not necessarily equal to the wealth of knowledge in the broader community. It's going to just simply take people time to learn.
Sure.
And so, we're going to have to respect that time.
Well, and that's where, when I talked, I'm sorry, Josh.
I was going to say, I just want to point out one quick thing, about Amendment 64, which I think a lot of people forget, especially these local governments, is that not only does every adult have a right to possess an ounce, but they actually have a right to purchase an ounce. So an adult can lawfully purchase the ounce from anyone. The person selling it to them, can only do it legally if they have a license, but the person buying it can get it from anyone. So it's, if you ban a community, not only do you get a black market, but you have like an extra protected black market where the consumers are actually protected.
Right.
It's absolutely fascinating. Why a community would actually ban, but just despite the knee-jerk reaction. But that's also the double edge of the sword of giving local governments control.
Well, absolutely. I mean, let's real quick. We were talking before the show here locally in Denver.
Yeah, in
Greenwood Village, right?
Good old Greenwood Village. With another kind of knee-jerk reaction. They passed an ordinance with the stated intent of restricting the personal possession and use of marijuana as much as possible. And frankly, they came up with a bunch of things that are unenforceable, and it's going to tie, Greenwood Village up in court probably for years trying to, keep marijuana prohibition in their city. But, at the end of the day, they're just going to miss out on the tax revenue. They're going to spend money trying to enforce laws that no one really wants them to enforce, and that'll be that. And my guess is, I think, probably some other communities may follow suit, but I think most of the smarter communities won't.
So, I mean, I'm so curious, and I don't even know that you know at this point or anyone, if this means if I'm driving through their town, and as a side note, for months and months and months, I stayed in a hotel in Greenwood Village when I was up here all week, every week.
No longer.
Right. Well, I have a house now, thank God. But yeah, I mean, the cops sat in the hotel parking lot. Not a bad hotel by any means, but they just sat there. I almost feel like they walked by my door a few times sniffing. And one night I walked out into literally a sea of cops, 20 cops at the room next door. And they followed me down to my car. So I got the impression it's not a very friendly place.
No, it's not. And so, for the people who are listening who may not know what we're talking about, so Greenwood Village, they passed a ban and on all the retail stores. But now they're also in the act of passing a ban on possessing marijuana on what they call Greenwood Village property, which arguably there's who knows what exactly that means. Like, is the street a CDOT street? Is it a Greenwood Village street? Is this sidewalk just an easement on someone's private property, or is this actually Greenwood Village property? No one really knows exactly what it means. That's why it's going to be impossible to enforce. The other thing that they did is they passed these crazy restrictions on growing. I don't know if you've seen their restrictions. In Greenwood Village, they said you can only have a 30 square foot grow. You can't use any. You can only use LED or compact fluorescent lights, and you have to just things that make it absolutely impossible to grow. And so with their stated purpose of trying to restrict this as much as possible, I don't see it being enforceable, especially because Amendment 64 specifically says no locality can make it shall not be an offense under any state or local law for the following acts, and that's possessing marijuana, using marijuana privately, and cultivating 6 plants in enclosed locked space. I don't see how they think they can get around that specific language based off of some general language somewhere else in the amendment.
No, they can't. And I think the bottom line is absolutely, they're not going to be on the right side of history. The bottom line is it's also going to bring on lawsuits, and it's going to just cause more problems for their city than good. I think they'll learn the lesson the hard way. I had the pleasure. It was actually a fairly reasonable conversation with Chief Joe Jackson from Greenwood Village. He sits on one of the boards.
Criminal law.
Criminal law, that's right. I had to think for a second. And DUID, which we're not going to have time to even get into, but him and I were talking that at first, and then we talked private clubs. And he actually, I had misunderstood him during the work group, and I thought, that I'm a firm believer that banning private clubs is impossible because it's private property, it's private cannabis, it's private consumption, it's all legal under 64. Zoning may come into play. I mean, there are issues, and again, we probably can't get into that either. But he wasn't very receptive, and I'll just leave it at that. And that's what I mean by, these are the folks, the more people that approach these people and come to these meetings, and we're running out of time is why I'm wrapping this sort of. It's so important right now that you be respectable, that you're well-spoken, that you come out and you voice your opinions, and you engage these people, and not just during the public comment, outside. Have some conversations on your way out. Hang out after the meetings. All of us work group members always stick around and chat with people. Sometimes I have to run out the door, and it's hard to do so, like today. But, again, we got to take a break here in just a minute. I want to thank you guys real quick before we do take a break and let you give us your websites so people needing, your services.
I'm easy enough to get a hold of, but, my firm doesn't have a website yet. I've actually been too busy doing the job to focus on those things. But, so 36 Solutions, again, it's my consulting and lobbying firm. I also, believe it or not, have expertise in areas beyond just cannabis policy, financial services, housing, tax policy, intellectual property, technology, things like that. So, it's actually kind of, now that I no longer work for a trade group, but now am in private practice, it's going to actually give me the opportunity to delve back into the other areas of policy with which I'm familiar with and which I have passions about. So I'm pretty excited about this new chapter.
How should people get a hold of you, Sean?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll give my email, I suppose. That's going to be good enough for now. See how popular it becomes. It's just Sean L. Coleman at gmail.com. So that's SHAWNLCOLEMAN at gmail.com.
And I'll throw a plug out for Sean. If you are listening and you are interested in becoming in the marijuana business, the people, the chances are you're going to need a lobbyist. You're going to need someone who's looking out for your specific interests, who's going to, make sure that, the state even accepts new applications. And so I think it's absolutely essential. I don't think I could, recommend anyone else but Sean Coleman. So, I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, I haven't started my lobbyist business yet, so I'll recommend you as well, sir.
I think they stopped accepting new licenses.
Oh, damn. Is it like the MMED where you just have to go wait for 2 days?
No, it's a $40 registration fee.
Nice.
It's those monthly reports you got to watch out for.
Right.
Right. So, Mr. Capel, what's your guys' website over at Sensible and your law firm? Because I would recommend, again, you and your partners were all heavily involved in 64. Christian's actually...
Christian's a member of the task force.
The main task force.
And Brian Vicente was one of the primary authors of 64.
I'll do the reverse plug. I mean, if you are also, interested in getting into this space and you want to be able to navigate effectively the laws for your business, well, who better to go to than people who actually wrote the law? So, I don't think there's a better law firm in the state and, probably the country. In fact, you guys are national.
We just opened an office in Boston.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah. Our website's VicenteCederberg.com.
Awesome, sir. Well, we're going to have Mr. Tavert on in a few weeks, and I'd like to have you back in because...
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Honestly, we got to 2 out of the 7 issues that I wanted to talk about the groups. So, having you guys in as authors of 64 and proponents is always cool because it's a great perspective to have. The knowledge is there, and I really appreciate it. Again, on our way out, I just want to remind everybody, I personally will be sitting in a meeting tomorrow for 4 hours. Local Authority and Control, we're at CCI. Do you know the address of that off the top of your head, Sean Coleman?
It's on
Sherman.
Is
it CC? It's not CML?
CML. Yeah, Colorado.
I'm sorry, yes, CML.
Colorado Municipal League.
It's 1144 Sherman Street.
My guests are awesome, picking up my slack. So be there at noon. Again, if you can't come later in the meeting and participate in the public comment, please be respectable. Please don't sit in the audience and talk in your radio voice.
And I'm stealing this mug, just so you know.
It's all you, brother.
Oh, can I steal one too?
No.
If we can find you one. All right, well, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for Stickman to get his back right because I've got another hour to entertain you guys. So stick around and enjoy some tunes that my lovely producer Sam will throw on for you. We'll see you in a bit. Peace.
Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
This is Jessica Asplund with the Crested Butte Wellness Center in the Craig Apothecary. I'd like to invite you into either of our locations to see the difference compassion makes. With everything from sublingual tablets, gluten-free products, and a growing variety of edibles, there is sure to be something right for everyone. We carry only top-shelf organically grown cannabis at affordable prices for everyone. Stop in and see us at our Crested Butte location at 329 Bellevue Avenue or at our Craig location at 611 Breeze Street.
Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturers, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD for medicinal hemp, this non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com or like us on Facebook, Dixie X, or Dixie Elixirs.
The law offices of Etzen, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenetzen.com.
Interested in the amazing benefits of CBD? Check out Dixie X Hemp CBD Wellness Products at www.dixiex.com.
Welcome back. I didn't realize I was live, so I wasn't talking in my radio voice. I was talking all soft. So I'm actually joined by a guest co-host now, Miss Molly. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm just throwing her right into the fire because I think she was a little nervous about this whole radio thing, but you don't get to be nervous here on Overgrow The Radio. You're just chatting with Stickman with blah, blah, blah. I can't talk tonight, too, so that makes it better. It's much easier that way. And our next guest is in studio. Graham, how are you, sir?
Doing good, brother. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you. We share some mutual friends. Some listeners may not know, I was one of the organizers of the Occupy movement, and that's where I ran into Mr. Stice and Robin, met them there. A lot of friendships and even relationships formed out of that movement. My friends call her my on-again, off-again girlfriend, so I'm not sure where we're at right now, but, jokingly, we met, Matt and Robin met, and then we all became family, so kudos. If Matt gives you good words, you're good in my book. Thanks, brother. So you're here tonight. One of the big issues that we've talked about before is cannabis use with veterans. And for me, I spent the last 3 years of my life living in Colorado Springs, one of the biggest military towns in the nation. I've seen firsthand, I've had friends, actually quite a few through the Occupy movement, that suffered from conditions such as, anxiety, PTSD, that they brought home from overseas, essentially, from what you guys saw. And, it's just a shame that there's only 18 states where they can get cannabis to help. I think if you look at Israel, per se, they've been studying cannabis for, over a decade, well over a decade, the government. They're now allowing their military active duty to use cannabis on duty. Things like that. I think, it's ironic in these groups we talk about studies, but we never want to look outside of the U.S. because, we're number one. So I think it's great with the passage of 64. One of the biggest things that came from that from me is the fact that you guys now sort of bypass the medical system here in Colorado and can legally use cannabis if you're over 21. I'm assuming most returning from tours are approaching that age, if not over, For those who don't know, PTSD is not, or anxiety, either one, are not conditions that are qualifiable here in Colorado for cannabis use under our medical Amendment 20. And that's a shame. That's a huge shame. You guys go risk your lives for years at a time. In some instances, you see horrors that people like myself could never imagine. I'm just a dirty hippie who's home talking on the radio. And I should premise this whole thing with thank you for your service and thank you for allowing me to do that. You guys, I'm going to kind of let you jump in because I don't know as much about IVAW as I should. I know my other half, she has friends that have been involved, so I'll let you give us a description and we'll chat some more.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and I think I want to start by appreciating the fact that you are recognizing service. But I would like to point out, and I mean this with all respect to any civilian or anybody who's trying to, really show the gratitude and the fact that it's almost overwhelming to imagine somebody going into a war zone willingly. I have to preface that by saying that thanking someone for their service is problematic because a lot of people are not proud of their service, or a lot of people were forced to do things that really put them in a difficult position. I find one of the things that's most, for those who've deployed and those who haven't, just shaking their hand and saying, welcome home. And, beyond that, really listening. hearing where people are coming from. Most veterans really want to talk. They want to talk about their experience and what they've been through. They don't have that. They don't feel like they have that opportunity.
Well,
So-
and that's not to jump in, but to jump in really quick. That's a very valid point, and my theory on that, and maybe worded wrong there. I am against most every war I've seen in my lifetime. I have been, but I've always supported the troops. It's kind of the same with law enforcement. Most police officers are good. It's a policy problem. It's sort of the same thing with the military. It's not your fault that you're in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever you're sent this year. It's our administration. Right. So that is a very valid point and something that I ask people take into consideration.
Thanks. And so I'm an organizer with a group called Iraq Veterans Against the War. And we've been around since about 2004. What we ask for, what we demand, is the end and complete withdrawal of American forces from Iraq and Afghanistan, full health benefits for all returning service members, and reparations to the Iraq and Afghan people. And beyond that, we do a lot of work with the community, trying to repair a lot of these bonds that have been separated between civilians and the veterans active duty military community, because these wars are only possible because of, we do live in a democracy. As much as those rights have been chipped away, we still live in a place where we have some democratic mechanisms, and we still are accountable to this system when it comes to going to war. And so that puts us in a position as veterans. We realize that CNN, Fox, MSNBC, they're not telling the true story. Nobody in this room or on this radio program has seen a dead American soldier since 9/11. If you had that kind of stuff on your television every day, or you saw one dead child, even if it was an accident, even if with the best intentions, your perspectives would begin to shift.
Well, let me get your opinion on that, because we're going to be on the same page on just about everything, I have a feeling. That bothers me, what you just mentioned. We highlight, almost glorify these school shootings and these different tragic, they are tragic, don't get me wrong. But these are all over the news. Every second you turn on the news. I don't watch news because that's all it is. Right. But when it comes to our military and the people who are, serving, you're exactly right. You have not seen one funeral. You don't see names. You don't see anything on TV. As an organization standpoint, why do you think that is? I think it's propaganda.
Right. Well, okay, so that's a really large question, but when we look at the history since the end of the Vietnam War, the Defense Department did a big review. So the military calls them after-action reviews, and after any incident or something that happens, you always look at it and try to learn from it and make better. Well, the Defense Department looked at the Vietnam War, which we lost, and calculated there was a number of problems. And one of those problems was media access. So they closed off media access and just did embeddings. Okay, so you're only getting a report from the 1st Marine Battalion or whatever. You're not getting the perspective of an Iraqi or Saudi or anybody. The other thing that they did was they prioritized things like families. They upped the benefits so that if you have children, which is encouraged by the military, you'll be much more susceptible to re-enlist and stay in, because first of all, you're not being trained in regular job skills. You don't leave the military. I left the military as 11 Bravo infantry ranger, being able to kick in doors, kill people, and put Semtex on doors to blow them in. Those are my job skills. So there's not a lot of job skills, and when you have a wife or a husband or children, they need health care too. And the military will cover that. The military will pay for some of your housing. It's the only middle-class job left out there for a lot of people. So they've really put us in a box where it's an economic draft. And we find ourselves in this situation where the American people, like I said before, are completely separated from any sacrifice in terms of, if we're honest about it, every household in the United States, every individual has paid $14,000 for these wars. Now, that's not going to be, you're not going to see that in an ad. You're not going to see that in your taxes, but it's coming, you're paying it. And on top of that, it's your morality. It's your identity as a part of this community as an American, and we're accountable to that, whether we want to pay attention or not.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you go from there? Well, here in a few minutes, we're going to have to take a break, but I think what we'll do is we're going to round this out a little bit with, I'm trying to tie the cannabis into this. I wanted to hit on the jobs, and I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but it's statistics show that a lot of people who come out of the military after tours, what you just said, there are not a lot of job skills there to jump back in. One of the big ones is law enforcement, and obviously, I'm trying to be delicate with this. As a police officer, government jobs, you're not allowed to consume cannabis. A lot of, I think, we've seen, I would say in the last decade, a huge rise in police violence. The overall attitude, the very militarization of all of our police forces nationwide. I mean, that's not really a secret. When I was a kid, we didn't have SWAT teams and helicopters, and it's ridiculous. But anyway, I mean, do you, and this is a personal opinion, do you think, if we looked at cannabis like Israel does and allowed the military and then vets to consume it, I personally like to say I know that it helps deal with the PTSD and things. For me, as an example with my pain, it sort of erases the pain, if that makes sense. And I think the effect on PTSD is very similar, where it sort of not erases the memory, but suppresses them, if you will. And I guess, do you think that we would see that our police public relations would be much better if we used cannabis? That's the question I was getting at.
That's a good question. I think, ultimately, look at a side of a police cruiser, it says protect and serve. You think of an American soldier, you hear the term hero, which I object to, but I think is apt for this point, which is, these are people that work in the public trust. These are people that are there for us, and that's why we look up to them, right? So when we're talking about PTSD, we're talking about a trauma. We're talking about, and we're also talking about larger issues, not just PTSD. You have military sexual trauma. 1 in 3 women in the military are sexually assaulted. And, this is something that it's higher than our colleges. Like we're dealing with a serious issue we don't even talk about. And on top of that, you have a new injury, the traumatic brain injury. And so out of these things, these are causing a lot of symptoms that I, as an organizer for Iraq Veterans Against the War, I find when I talk to soldiers, when I do outreach to active duty or I do outreach to veterans, most of the people I talk to are talking about how marijuana is helping them slow down, enjoy life a little bit more, be able to take one thing at a time, numb some of that physical and psychological pain. There's a lot of different results. For me, as a person who works with this organization, we don't advocate marijuana reform. I'm simply telling you that the people I work with and the people I work for, they are people who are supportive of going forward with legalizing marijuana. And because, for me personally, before the military, I think I smoked marijuana 4 or 5 times. I liked alcohol. I didn't like smoking marijuana. That was no interest, right? When I got out of the military, I had a severe drinking problem, which is another thing we don't talk about, the military. If you ever meet a military person and they don't drink, I'm surprised. It's
almost encouraged.
It is incredibly encouraged. I don't mean that as a flippant joke. I mean that as it is an institutional thing. I mean, you don't get off work. You're not allowed to go home until you have a beer or 2 with the guys. Mm-hmm. It's like you're not a man or you're not a woman. You're not strong enough. So, when I got out of the military, and I began to use marijuana just a little bit, I noticed a sea change. I noticed being able to go to class when I started going back to school because I was sitting in the back of the corner, didn't want to talk to anybody. Suddenly I was able to understand what the teacher was saying, and simple interactions, just taking it a little bit slower, not being so hyper aware of my circumstances and my environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you brought up a couple of really valid points. I just want to emphasize those before we have to go to break. The sexual assault, again, I've been very involved in the last year or two with women's rights issues here statewide, I guess, not really nationwide. But, it's a lot of these statistics I was unaware of, and I think even when you go into the military or combat zones, that statistic goes up, I believe. And it's so suppressed by the military. I mean, it's just now surfacing a little bit in the media. But I had no idea that it was that bad. I mean, these are the things that, this is why you're here. These are the things that people have to be aware of. And we have to, as I talked about in our first segment, this is where you need to approach your congressman or congresswoman and all your representatives and just raise hell about it and get things changed.
And I think it's important to note that this is larger than just like a legal solution. This is a cultural problem.
Absolutely.
So anytime you have an institution with primarily men or all men, no women coming in there to kind of bring a little bit of reason into the moment. Like, you're going to have these types of things. If you look at these look at the National Football League, you look at the military, you look at a lot of like high quality police forces. They're all in these kinds of messes, or
Well, I like to say it's the high testosterone, and I'm not that guy. I'm pretty laid back. So speaking of laid back, just kick back for like 2 minutes, and we'll be right back on Overgrow The Radio. Peace.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
That Mad Hatter Smoke Shop has everything from space glass to butane and butane accessories, I tell you what. Located at 6091 West Colfax in Lakewood, and now at 2615 Walnut Street in Denver. Ah! God damn it, Reclaim, put your pants back
Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment. Dixie Elixirs infuse sparkling beverages. Dixie Edibles, dewdrops, tonics, and Dixie Scripts extraordinarily concentrated cannabis extract capsules, along with Dixie Botanicals, all-natural topical therapy. All of these medicinal remedies are available at your local medical marijuana center. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
This is Jessica Asplund with the Crested Butte Wellness Center in the Craig Apothecary. I'd like to invite you into either of our locations to see the difference compassion makes. With everything from sublingual tablets, gluten-free products, and a growing variety of edibles, there is sure to be something right for everyone. We carry only top-shelf, organically grown cannabis at affordable prices for everyone. Stop in and see us at our Crested Butte location at 329 Bellevue Avenue, or at our Craig location at 611 Breeze Street.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com.
Hello. And we're back on whoa, we're squelching and echoing and all kinds of fun stuff on iCannabis Radio's Overgrow The Radio. So we're back with Miss Molly and Graham here in studio, and I always forget my wonderful producer, Sam. We just made a phone call during the break, and I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. I've got to mention our sponsors real quick. We love them. We're lucky. We've got the greatest sponsors in the world, Dixie Elixir. Dixie Elixir and Edible to be proper, Dixie X, Dixie Botanicals, to name them all. Dixie's a great company. Tripp was in a couple weeks ago. He comes in and does a monthly segment, and we goof around and cause trouble. And, well, we're kind of the boys, like we were just talking about, without, horrible stuff. So Dixie's great. Check them out. They do have the new botanical line, DixieX.com, DixieElixir.com, and I'm not sure about their botanical website. I'm sorry. Green Monster Glass, Daryl's awesome. His family-owned business, Reasonable Glass. Dispensary owners, please give him a call and stock your shelves. And Crested Butte Apothecary. I never can say that right. Apothecary. Yeah, there you go. My producer got it right. Anyway, but we'll just tie that in with Crested Butte Wellness because they're one and the same owners. They're a new sponsor of ours. We love them. If you're out that way, out in the mountains, go see them. I want to get out there. I'm going to run away to the mountains very soon. In Dispensary, which is one of my favorites in the Springs. I can't be too biased. I have a couple different places. We Grow Colorado will be coming back next month. Drew will be coming in for a grow segment. It'll be no longer We Grow. It'll now be Natural Leaf, I believe. And the Realm of Caring, if you're a dispensary and you're not donating trim to them, I don't like you. The Realm of Caring helps cancer patients, helps Dravet syndrome kids, which they're really working on now and focusing on. What's an ounce of trim? A couple ounces of trim if you can help a cancer patient. Let's do it. And last but not least, Independent Records. Independent's all over the place, cool place. 30 years ago, they started selling glass. Now they have everything. So we'll check all our sponsors out anytime we're in the area, and we encourage you to do the same. And hello, Matt Stice. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, sir.
Fantastic list of sponsors there.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. We're spoiled. They bring us toys and gifts, and we, have fun, and, it's just the way it is. So you, I kind of gave you a little bit of a segue. I don't know if you were on the computer or not, but our chat room tells you to speak up. By the way, I'll just throw that in. I met you back in Occupy, and sort of heard your story, but I guess what I want to do tonight is give you an opportunity, to tell us your story, to tell us, why you use cannabis. I mean, you're obviously a veteran. That's why we called you. We're highlighting IVAW. And, I'm going to turn you loose, and I'll have questions.
Sounds good. Hope I'm speaking loud enough.
That's better.
Okay, great. I am a veteran, and I'm a member of IVAW. And as Graham had indicated, we all have our personal stories, and I'm an advocate for cannabis, and I'm an advocate for veterans' healthcare. And I think they're one and the same. You can combine those things. And to get into my story, I guess, is to go back. After I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I kind of slipped into the military after a summer of kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to be in life. And the military gave me that opportunity. And at that time, I was very conservative, and life was fine as long as I had structure, and the military provided that. Well, that was 1990, and I was scheduled to go over to the Gulf for a war that lasted less than 2 months. My unit never actually went over, so I never saw war back then. So fast forward 13 years after I exited the military officially in 1998 after I served in the Pennsylvania National Guard. And after a series of events, I had decided to join the military again because one of the reasons I thought that I needed to see war. Very confusing to actually want to see a war, but in my estimation, I needed to know why we were over in a foreign country. And I, wanted to see for myself, was the things I was hearing for certain people conspiracy theories, or was there things going on that the American public needed to know? And as a member of the American public, I wanted to know. So I joined the military, and part of that was, this trying to determine where I wanted to be, or I needed to have a foundation in life again after a series of events that occurred. And the military provided that once again, but I also I looked at things with a skeptical eye. So fast forward to 2007, the end of 2007, I deployed to Iraq. I spent a month in Kuwait, 13 months in Iraq, and another month in Kuwait. So 15 months, we were part of the surge into Iraq, or not surge, excuse me, the surge where many units were forced to be in Iraq or be overseas for 15 months.
That's
My
absurd.
job was generator mechanic. I touched 3 generators while I was in Iraq. I spent my time at an entry control point basically doing the job of an MP. Very frustrating that here I thought I was going to get to at least put my hands on a generator, do something that would actually seem like I was part of like the whole system, but I was actually ended up doing the job of mentee. So anyway, I redeployed on January 20th of 2009. That was the day that President Obama was sworn into office the first time. And the only thing I could think of is I can't wait to smoke marijuana. I was overwhelmed with the fact that I was coming back. I knew that we would be dealing with UAs and whatnot, but I wasn't concerned about it. I figured that things would work themselves out. I got very lucky, had friends in high places, so to speak, and never came up pot. I finished my time in the Army in May of 2009, and then I became a full-time user of cannabis because of many reasons. I had physical ailments like I dislocated my ankle. I had mental issues such as dealing with the fact that I spent 15 months in someone else's country, taking their resources and giving them back nothing. And that produced, tons of emotions and stresses and, it runs to the gamut of emotions, of course. But, that's, then you can continue the journey into 2011 where I met Aaron Hughes from IBAW, and then later I met Graham Plumpner, who's in studio there with you, and I wanted to be more involved with helping veterans, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely. When you came back, were you a Colorado resident, or did you seek out Colorado specifically so you could be quasi-legal, as I like to say?
Well, the first time that I was in the service back in the 90s, I was stationed at Fort Carson, and I love the state of Colorado, and I had the opportunity to come back to Colorado the second time around in 2006, and a drill sergeant provided me with that opportunity, and he knew someone in personnel, and they got me to Fort Carson, and that's what I wanted because I wanted to be back in Fort Carson. I knew that I wasn't going to re-enlist, and I would end up living in Colorado after that point. So it wasn't like totally a cannabis thing. It was more the beauty of the state. There's so much to do outdoors, that sort of thing. Cannabis just kind of worked its way in there as well.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I was, as you know, a backpacker for like a decade of my life pretty much. And when it came down to time to decide, I had like Maine, Colorado, and I'm like, well, I've spent so much time on the Appalachian Trail and in the Appalachians. I love them, but it's time to go bigger and better. So I chose the Rockies. So, cannabis, no matter where I live, it's been a part of my treatment, since not too long after my surgery. And it's a must. So, that was just an added benefit. If I lived in a prohibition state, I'd have to break the law. That's the way it is. So, Matt, we've got a few more minutes with you before we have to take a break and move on to our next veteran and hear their story. I guess my big question to you is, do you see, just for people out there who don't suffer from the stress related to war and that type of thing, do you see it essential to get this out, being cannabis, to the rest of the states, to the veterans living across the country who don't have access? Do you see that as a priority for you guys to push?
I personally do. I know I'm not speaking for IVAW,
sure,
but I personally do. I'm an advocate for cannabis, and I'm not even, I don't have a tenth of the knowledge or even a percentage of the 1% of the knowledge that you have, but I'd love to hear people that are excited about cannabis and the hemp industry, because I think we can branch off of cannabis and we get into hemp and how it could take take care of most of the woes that we were dealing with, like the economy and, jobs and this and that. But getting back to, veterans across the country, if they're not using cannabis, there might be some sort of fear that, they're going to get in trouble, or they cannot use because there's something, job related. They either have to deal with a UA every once in a while, or they're searching for a job. So those are, things that impede us from being able to enjoy cannabis for medical reasons and be productive in society the way we feel we should. And I don't think any American, if you talk about freedom, would deny that people appreciate their freedoms. And on top of that, they tend to lean even further to that appreciation of freedom when you talk about veterans and the fact that who provides, the opportunity for freedom, quote, and, in quotes. So I just think it's something that veterans are doing throughout the country, and it should be legal for everyone. But if they're going to make certain subsections of the law, veterans should be able to certainly enjoy cannabis wherever they are.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, and I think the question is interesting, but I think it needs to be a larger question. I mean, beyond like what we think about it, I think it's an organizational question. It's a structural question, a movement question. And when we think about like marijuana, we're thinking about like a lot of these issues around militarism, that umbrella term, right? So we're talking about the police. We're talking about immigration, especially in Colorado with geotech and private prisons. We're talking about the prison industry. All these things are linked in, and war are linked into keeping a lot of these things away from us. So it's to me, it's a no-brainer.
One of my biggest headbutts in a couple of my previous relationships was that I talk about cannabis all the time, and I'm glad you bring that point up because I started activism on environmental issues, as a teenager, really, and I worked my way into cannabis over the years. I started, as Matt mentioned, as a hemp activist, actually. I saw the benefits of hemp. And exactly what you just said, cannabis and the drug war, I will go as far as to say, ties into almost everything that's wrong in our society. If you really step back and don't focus on the fact that Stickman talks about cannabis all the time, you see those connections. The banking, the police, the military, it's the CIA admittedly smuggling drugs. I could go on and on. But speaking of going on and on, Matt, I have to bid you adieu, my friend. We have to bid you adieu, and thank you for chatting with us, if you will. When I'm down that way again, we shall medicate. Actually, I think I'm coming to your party tomorrow night, so there we go.
Excellent, excellent, and thank you for having me on the show and just supporting what we're trying to do for veterans. And I'll see you soon.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again. All right, we're going to take one more last quick break and get our next guest on the phone. And, so stick with us. We love you. Peace.
Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturers, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD from medicinal hemp, this non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com or like us on Facebook, Dixie X or Dixie Elixirs. Interested in the amazing benefits of CBD? Check out Dixie X Hemp CBD Wellness Products at www.dixiex.com.
This is Jessica Asplund with the Crested Butte Wellness Center in the Craig Apothecary. I'd like to invite you into either of our locations to see the difference compassion makes. With everything from sublingual tablets, gluten-free products, and a growing variety of edibles, there is sure to be something right for everyone. We carry only top-shelf, organically grown cannabis at affordable prices for everyone. Stop in and see us at our Crested Butte location at 329 Bellevue Avenue or at our Craig location at 611 Breeze Street.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
That Mad Hatter Smoke Shop has everything from space glass to butane and butane accessories, I tell you what. Located at 6091 West Colfax in Lakewood, and now at 2615 Walnut Street in Denver. Ah! God damn it, Reclaim, put your pants back.
Green Monster Glass, a full selection of glass and glass accessories, as well as all of your smoking needs. Stock your dispensary or smoke shop with reasonably priced glass from Green Monster Glass. Green Monster Glass is locally owned and operated. Find us on Facebook or call Daryl at 719-217-5380. That's 719-217-5380.
And I guess we're back on Overgrow The Radio. I should have made Molly bring us back. She's just kind of hanging out tonight, getting the feel for our show. Hey, TJ, how are you? It's Stickman on Overgrow The Radio.
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. I was kind of waiting for that music to play out there a little bit. We're joined by my guest co-host, if you will, Molly, and your buddy Graham from IVAW are in studio with us.
What's up, guy?
I guess my first question, which was actually a suggestion, is what's it like being in a non-medical state?
Well, it actually pulls out a lot of jealousy on some days, like the other day when High Times announced that y'all were going to be hosting the Cannabis Cup, and I can't make it out to Denver that quick. So,
well, I can go a step further to add to that jealousy and tell you that iCannabis Radio, and in particular Overgrow The Radio, well, all of our shows, will be broadcasting both days for the second year in a row from the High Times Cup here in Denver, Colorado. Not to rub it in.
And you know, my go-to piece is a local Colorado medicinal piece from Incredible Industries. I was introduced to that, and that totally relieved me because I hate smoking. It kills my lungs, but that piece in itself is very useful for medicinal purposes and not as harsh. Not to be plugging anything, but but yeah, living in a state that is in prohibition is tough. We have to skirt the laws and all that stuff. And I actually was in traffic court the other day and saw cocaine and marijuana bust, and it was almost like they were downplaying the amount of marijuana because it was less than 10 grams, but the cocaine was an amount that sounded like for distribution. So, you know, they were trying to shoot bigger on the crack cocaine charges versus the marijuana charges. But in speaking with the fellow who y'all referenced at the beginning of the show, Mike Kraywitz today, who's with Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access, he was also the plaintiff in that case against the DEA that gave standing to the fight so it can be pursued further. But nice. He was telling me that Virginia is luckily just a misdemeanor state now, so we're getting there. And we do have access for use for cancer patients and glaucoma patients. It's 1970s law they put on the books when it looked like federally it was going to be legalized, but then it kind of came back to bite Virginia in the butt. They never repealed it, but it's still there, but you have to have a prescription, and no doctor can write a prescription legally under the FDA guidelines. So,
not yet.
So that's
we're working on that here. Give us a little time.
So that's kind of where I stand. However, living in Virginia, I am very close to Washington, D.C., who just legalized it for medical use, and also the fact that that's where a lot of the fight is going on right now. And I myself, I am a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I'm also involved with Iraq Veterans Against the War. And the way a lot of this ties in with our personal views on medical marijuana is we are fighting for a service member or a veteran's right to heal when they suffer things like post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, or military sexual trauma. And we believe that the VA should recognize the fact that there are alternative therapies, and medicinal marijuana being one of them, but also things such as Reiki, massage therapy, music therapy, stuff that isn't recognized as mainstream medicine. So therefore, we're looking at that personally and trying to see about tying the ideas in with fights otherwise. And I believe that a big army is a strong army, and when you involve multiple organizations like MPT, Normal, LEAP, and other organizations that are fighting for the same thing, and then bring in outside organizations, that it can only make it that much stronger. And the government does not want to tell the veterans no.
No, they don't. You guys carry a little bit of lobbying power. On a side note, man, I don't know if Matt told you, but I founded Overgrow the Government, and we'll be in D.C. again at Lafayette Park this time on 420. We come out every year, and then we go out again in the fall, and we have, I bet I could probably, I've got a little bit of pull, so I bet I could probably get you guys on the roster to speak. We'd love to have you. We again try to cover a lot of issues in a very broad base against the federal prohibition, if you will, while we're there is kind of our goal. But that's an off-air topic. Continuing on. I guess we are a little short on time, not nearly as much as I'd like to spend with all you guys, really. Again, to kind of recycle a question from Matt, what, for you personally, what I try to do with these segments is personalize you guys to everyone listening. And, it's like with my back pain. Nobody knows how I feel sitting here in this chair after a 10-hour day of being in chairs, except for me or someone who shares my ailment. So that being said, what exactly, why, you're in a prohibitionist state, why do you go to lengths of breaking a law, essentially, to take care of yourself? What does cannabis do for you?
Well, before the military, I was kind of the life of the party guy. I always had a great story to tell everybody. And exiting the military, since I had an inability to adapt that was diagnosed by a psychiatrist in the military, but yet they kept me in for the full 6-year term, I came out changed very much so emotionally. And I noticed I had a lot shorter trigger, a lot worse temper, and I've realized that, I finally, hit rock bottom with depression in the VA hospital, and they prescribed me Ativan, and one night this was probably a year later after the hospitalization, I got a brand new prescription of Ativan. I was like, let me take a couple extra tonight and relax myself, and next thing that I was told, I'd taken 28 and drank an 18-pack of beer and don't remember the next few days. So that's when I decided to cut out all chemicals and go with natural.
Well, and that's something that, a good point, let me jump in real quick and ask you guys, the military has been called out recently because they do. I'm a proponent. I after my back surgery, they put me on like 30-plus pills a day, and I got down to like a few a day. So I'm right there with you on that. But what people I don't think in the general public realize is the military pushes prescription pills on you guys, don't they?
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead, TJ.
And, is that Graham speaking?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay, yeah, they do. And, just recently, the VA has been, reprimanded for their pushing of certain prescription drugs like antipsychotics and, antidepressants on people without fully knowing their effects.
Yeah, I long for a day when we have to list the ingredients of prescription medications. I long for that day. So I'm going to apologize because we are running super short on time, and I got a text saying that we forgot to promote an event coming up, so we need to get to that. TJ, I want to thank you for coming on. I have been preaching tonight over and over and over, as I'm sure you've heard. I see you in the chat. How important it is for folks like you, especially in Virginia. That's not always a friendly state. You guys may have decrim, but my friends that live there in Northern Virginia joke that it's a duct tape state. That being that the cops will literally take duct tape to the floorboard of your car to get cannabis to work a charge against you. So, man, keep up the hard work. I'm on your guys' side until we get all veterans access. As I said in the beginning of this whole segment, Israel is the way to go with that. We should be offering it to not only vets, but active duty.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for having me on, and I'm looking forward to what comes out of this discussion.
Absolutely. We'll get you guys back on again soon. We'll have a follow-up and talk some more stuff. So thank you, sir, for coming on, and enjoy the show in the future.
Thanks a lot.
Real quick, Graham, as I mentioned, we've got an event down south. I guess you're going to drive down for, too?
Yeah, so we've got, so every year the Colorado chapter of Iraq Veterans Against the War gets together, and we go over our goals for the next year. We look at our last events, and last year we had 26 separate events from fundraisers to community gatherings. So we're going to be bringing about 30 members of the community together to address some of the issues around the 60,000 active duty soldiers we have in this state and the 600,000 veterans. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow night. We got a fundraiser at 7. It's at the Pikes Peak Metropolitan Community Church. That address is 1102 South 21st, Colorado Springs. And if you ever have any questions or want to know what we're doing, just go to ivaw.org. It's Iraq Veterans Against the War, ivaw.org, and you'll figure it out.
And I think I will be there with my wonderful other half, supporting you guys. I get out of a meeting at like 5, so it's I'll be flying down with the traffic, but I'll get there. I encourage everybody down in the Springs to go out and support the event, support IVAW all year long. The thing with nonprofits is we have to pay the bills all year long, so these events are great, but we need support always. Very worthwhile cause. Keep up the great work. Kudos, and I commend you guys on what you're doing. And again, you've got our show's support anytime you need it to promote anything. So,
Thank you, brother.
All right, Miss Molly, you said nothing tonight. What's up with that? I got to put her on the spot at the end of the show. She's just laughing, like, leave me alone. So thank you for sitting in. We'll get you to talk more next time you're in. And again, I'm just going to echo I got teased last week because I always do like a last word, and somebody's like, "You're kind of like Jerry Springer." My words of wisdom on the way out. But it's pretty simple this week. As I said, stand up, do something. Call your congressman, write letters, email, do something. Until the prohibitionist states come out of the closet and take a stand, we can't do this alone. Colorado, Washington, states like us, we're limited. We're there, but we're limited. We can get this done together, but it has to be unified. Make sure to check out all the other great programs and tune in next week. We'll be back with another great show here on Overgrow The Radio. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com. Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
This is Jessica Asplund with the Crested Butte Wellness Center in the Craig Apothecary. I'd like to invite you into either of our locations to see the difference compassion makes. With everything from sublingual tablets, gluten-free products, and a growing variety of edibles, there is sure to be something right for everyone. We carry only top-shelf, organically grown cannabis at affordable prices for everyone. Stop in and see us at our Crested Butte location at 329 Bellevue Avenue or at our Craig location at 611 Breeze Street.